A woman, clearing out her late grandfather's desk, found a slim striped pen in a drawer, the barrel a pearly gray, with fine dark stripes, dried ink around the nib, and nearly binned it as an old office pen. Here's what she couldn't see. That striped barrel was the mark of a Parker Vacumatic, a pen collectors specifically hunt, and the right example in the right celluloid can be worth many times what she'd have taken for the whole drawer, while the ballpoints beside it were worth nothing. That's not a coincidence. The pen was always valuable. The value was lost the moment it passed from someone who didn't know what they held to someone who did, and that gap is where almost all the money in the vintage pen world lives. Here's the thing about fountain pens. Age does unglamorous things to them. Celluloid darkens, chrome dulls, the ink dries so the pen looks broken, and every one of those signals reads as junk to a normal person and a clue to a collector. To you, it's an old pen, stained and dried up. To a collector, it's a maker, a model, a filling system, a nib, a material, details deciding whether you hold a $5 cast-off or a four-figure piece of writing history. The real question isn't whether they're worth money. It's why the valuable ones stay so cheap, and who benefits. Knowledge sits in very few hands, and a resale economy runs on it. So here are 10 common fountain pens people own without knowing it. One warning first, and it matters more than anything else. Do not clean it. Do not polish the barrel. Do not force a stiff filler. And above all, do not have the nib fixed or swapped, because the nib is often the single most valuable part of the pen, and a polish can erase the brand imprint that identifies the whole thing, while a forced filler can crack a 70-year-old barrel. Leave it exactly as it is. The first is the Parker Vacumatic, the pen with the translucent striped barrel that lets you see the ink level, made through the 1930s and 40s as Parker's answer to the lever and piston fillers. The striped celluloid is the whole tell, laminated rings of pearl and color, in golden pearl, silver pearl, azure, and burgundy, exactly the material that darkens with age, so people write it off as a dull old pen. The details drive the value. Earlier runs with an arrow clip are more sought after, and the oversized models climb hardest. Flip the cap, read the imprint, note the stripe pattern, and leave it alone. The next one is the German pen people mistake for a plain black office relic. The second is the Pelikan 100 and 400, which built the company's reputation on a brilliant piston filling system made from the 1930s through the 50s. The 100, with its transparent green binde, the side window that shows the ink, and the 400, in its iconic green and black striped livery, are adored by collectors for their nibs. People see a small, plain, old-fashioned pen and dismiss it, when a genuine early Pelikan with an original flexible nib and an intact binde is a serious collectible. The tells are the Pelikan logo on the cap top, the Pelikan nib engraving, the piston knob at the end, and the ink window binde. The third is the Wahl-Eversharp, the American maker whose best idea was letting you change the nib. The two to know are the 1920s Doric, with its 12-sided Art Deco faceted barrel, and the streamlined Skyline from the 1940s, one of the most elegant pens of its era. Wahl-Eversharp built its pitch around custom interchangeable nibs, and their vintage flexible nibs are exactly what calligraphers hunt today. A Doric in marbled celluloid with a full-flex nib is a genuine sleeper, and the Skyline's clean lines make it instantly collectible. The fourth is the British pen that looks like nothing and writes like a treasure. The fourth is the Conway Stewart and the Maybe Todd Swan, the two great British names people outside Britain rarely recognize. Conway Stewart made beautifully patterned celluloid pens, cracked ice, tiger's eye, herringbone, in marbled colors collectors chase, And the Maybe Todd Swan, especially the eyedropper and lever fill models, with their soft, flexible nibs, is a serious vintage name. These get dismissed as generic old pens because the brands aren't household names abroad, which is exactly why they stay underpriced in drawers. The tells are the maker's imprint, the pattern and color of the celluloid, the flecks of the gold nib, and the British hallmarks on the silver overlay ones. The more unfamiliar the name, the more likely nobody in the house looked it up. The fifth lesson is the one that costs people the most, and with pens, it comes down to two words: the nib. On a fountain pen, the nib is frequently the most valuable single component, and certain nibs multiply its worth. A flexible wet noodle nib that spreads under pressure to vary the line, a stub, an oblique, or a music nib are hunted by calligraphers and can be worth more than the pen around them. So the person who sees a scratchy or bent-looking nib and has it swapped for a rigid modern replacement, or bins the pen, destroys the most valuable part. And originality is everything. An original nib matched to its pen, an unpolished barrel with a crisp imprint, and an intact filler beat a cleaned-up, re-nibbed pen every time. Never force a dried filler, never replace an original nib, and never bin a pen because it's dried up, because a dried-out flex nib is a restoration project and a fortune, while a modern replacement nib is just a pen. The sixth takes that danger to its most expensive extreme, and it's the pen hiding in the drawer that's worth more than everything around it, precisely because almost nobody recognizes the maker. The Conklin is the classic example. The Toledo company, whose crescent filler, patented around 1900, was one of the very first pens to hold its own ink, instead of being dipped, filled by a little crescent that pushed through a slot in the barrel. Mark Twain was its spokesman in 1903, saying he preferred it because it couldn't roll off the desk, and that history makes early Conklins genuinely collectible. Alongside it sit the other early self-fillers and eyedroppers, big black hard rubber pens that look, to a modern eye, like ugly old relics. These get lumped into estate lots and sold for pennies, and the danger is the clear-out, where a dealer offers one round number for the box of old pens, and the Conklin, the flexible nib eyedropper, disappears into the pile. This is where the most people lose the most money, not because the pen looked like junk, but because it was disguised inside a transaction designed to prevent itemization. Grief and exhaustion are the picker's best friends. So the rule, plainly, never sell pens in a bulk lot, never accept one price for all of them, read every imprint, and research each maker separately, because the entire value of a drawer can sit in one pen nobody recognized. The seventh is the pen where the value is painted on. The Japanese lacquer art pen, nobody would guess, is worth thousands. Maki-e and Pilot produced Maki-e pens, decorated by hand with urushi lacquer and sprinkled gold and silver powder in traditional designs: dragons, cranes, landscapes, cherry blossom, some by named artists of the Kokokai Guild. A Maki-e pen is fine art as much as a writing instrument, and even the simpler ones carry serious value, while the elaborate artist-signed pieces reach into the thousands. People see an old decorated pen and assume the design is printed on cheaply, when genuine Maki-e is painstaking handwork no factory reproduces. The tells are the depth and detail of the lacquer, the artist's signature, or the Namiki or Pilot mark, and the quality of the gold work. We've covered makers, filling systems, nibs, and lacquer, and the last three pull it together, starting with the flagship, the maker built to impress. The eighth is the top-tier flagship pen, the oversized statement piece each great house made to show off, where two pens from the same brand can be worlds apart. Waterman's Patrician from the late 1920s, a large Art Deco pen in striking colors like nacre and onyx, and the earlier 100-year pen are among the most collectible Watermans ever made, worth far more than the ordinary models. The oversized flagships and the doctors and desk pens, with unusual features, carry premiums over the standard-size versions that look similar to an untrained eye. So when you research, don't look at active listings, the pens for sale with hopeful asking prices, because anyone can ask any number. Look at sold listings, what pens actually changed hands for, and match the maker, model, size, and material. Active listings tell you what sellers wish. Sold listings tell you the truth. The ninth is the everyday pen that surprises people, and the name that got reused, the read it twice story, running through this market. The humble Esterbrook, an inexpensive American school pen, is worth checking because its renewable screw-in nib units came in dozens of types, and certain rare units, the flexible and specialty grinds, are worth more than the pen, so a plain Esterbrook can hide a valuable nib. And the great names got bought and revived, so the name on the barrel tells you less than people think. The Conklin, Wahl-Eversharp, and Conway Stewart of the Golden Age are not the modern revival companies stamping those names today, and a familiar brand can be a modern reissue or a genuine vintage piece worth many times more. The genuine article is the pen made by the original company in its real era, identified by the imprint style, the material, the filling system, and the nib, not by the name alone. You read the pen, not just the logo. The 10th is the Grail, where every principle compounds and the ceiling disappears. The most extreme version of the central truth, that the value was lost the moment it passed from someone who knew to someone who didn't. At the very top sit the pens that look like nothing in a drawer. An artist signed Namiki Maki-e in urushi and gold, a Waterman patrician in a rare color, or an early gold overlay pen, an oversized Vacumatic, or a full-flex Wahl-Eversharp Doric, a sterling Conway Stewart with British hallmarks, an early Conklin crescent filler from the Mark Twain era. And here's what makes pens different. The whole thing sits in a drawer among dead batteries. It looks broken, because the ink dried decades ago. And its most valuable part, the nib, is the one people most want to fix. Every lesson converges here. The maker and model, the filling system and nib, the material and pattern, the imprint, the warning never to polish, force, or replace, and the venue, because where you sell matters as much as what. A rare pen sold to a general house clearance buyer or a bulk estate dealer is sold to whoever walks by, while the person who will recognize and pay for it is a specialist pen dealer or an auction house with a writing instruments department. So here's the checklist that flips you from the person being collected from to the person who knows. Don't polish it, don't force the filler, don't replace the nib, don't bin it because it won't write. Leave every honest bit of patina where it is. Flip it over and read the imprint on the barrel and the markings on the nib, because the look of the pen is only the beginning and the imprint is the truth. Check the nib for flex. Note the material and the filling system. Never sell in a bulk lot. Research on sold listings, not active ones. And when you've found something real, take it to a specialist, not a passerby. If you recognized even one of these, hit the like button and comment below if you've got an old pen you can't identify, especially a striped, faceted, or decorated one, and I'll take a look. Subscribe if you want the part of the market the resellers already know and won't share. Because the truth under all 10 is simple. These pens were never worthless. They were built to look like the ones people throw away. And the only thing standing between you and what they're really worth is knowing. That's not a coincidence either.